Hi, Steve Cassidy of Steve Cassidy Guitar, and welcome to Jojo Fry Rocks.
Hello, thanks for having me. How are we doing?
Thanks for coming on here. So for the viewers of my channel that might not know who you are, although I have a sneaking suspicion that most of them do, because whenever I'm on your live streams in the chat, I see a lot of the subscribers and the viewers of my channel on there as well. So I think there's probably some degree of overlap. But for those who might not know you, Steve has got one of the best guitar channels on YouTube, in my opinion. Really, really big fan of your stuff, Steve. Your videos are awesome. Love all the kind of guitar reviews and things that you do, as well as like the live chats with interesting people as well. And I always try to join your live streams if I can. But do you want to just kind of do a little bit of an intro, a little bit of an overview for those who might not have seen it of what you kind of do over there on Steve Cassidy Guitar?
Oh, well, thank you very much. That was far too kind. But yeah, I think you pretty much covered it all. So I'm the Scottish guy on YouTube. There's more than one of us apparently, but
oh right, I haven't seen the other one, so I don't know who that is.
one of the Scottish guys on YouTube that does guitar reviews and things like that. So I've been at the channel a couple of years, almost. I started like on New Year's Day a couple of years ago. But what happens on the channel? Yeah, guitar reviews, things like that. And that's pretty much it. Like live streams happen, try and do collaborations and things like that. Just trying to figure out this whole YouTube thing like most of us. I've been watching your channel as well, Jojo, and been enjoying your content too. I like how you do a variety of content and topics, and it's always interesting stuff.
Oh, thanks, Steve. It's at the moment just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff out there, seeing what sticks. But usually what I try to do is think, well, if it's something that interests me, if it's something that I'm into, there's a fair chance that, people similar to me with similar interests are hopefully going to enjoy it. So it's, I called it Jojo Fry Rocks because rock music is my main kind of musical interest, I suppose. Sort of rock, metal, grunge, that kind of area. So it's all things to do with that, but especially guitar-based music. And obviously that's where, one of the areas where we cross over, obviously, in terms of like being massively into guitar enthusiasts. And I thought, there's probably quite a lot of stuff that we do have in common because I've figured out that we're the same age. So we would have grown up in the same decades, the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. And I thought, it might be interesting to like have a chat with you really about your sort of musical background and journey, and especially your guitar journey. I've done a couple of videos on my channel about my background and stuff, so I'm sure everyone's like fed up of hearing about that now. But my sort of like early life and early experiences with music and guitar and everything obviously was kind of shaped by like my family and my parents, and like my dad being into the Beatles was a really massive influence on me and a really big reason that I started wanting to play guitar ever in the first place. So I was just kind of wondering like what your early experiences were, because obviously you now are at a way more advanced point than I'm at, because obviously we've had very different journeys and different lives, and you're a very experienced guitar teacher, you play music for a living, you're a very good guitarist, and that's one of the reasons why I like your channel, because you're a great player, but you don't kind of need to show off about it like some guitar channels do. And it's just really great. So yeah, I was wondering about your sort of introduction to guitar and when you were a kid, when did you start, how did you get into it and all that stuff.
Great stuff. Well, how lucky are you to be getting into the guitar via the Beatles? Wow, that's pretty amazing. So I'm quite similar in that my dad, So my mother and father, my father is the one who's the musician and musical, so he's a guitarist as well. He's always been into guitar, and he also is a fan of the Beatles from the time, and the Beach Boys I think is maybe a bigger one for him. But he also was just got amazing eclectic music taste that got me into a lot of stuff early on, so like Stevie Wonder, Steely Dan, and then around the time, as you'll know, growing up as the time we grew up, it was Madonna and Michael Jackson everywhere.
Absolutely. And the 80s was such a good, I mean, I do like pop music as well, and the 80s was such a great decade for pop, probably the best decade for pop. And I said in previous videos that, because I love Michael Jackson, and I think Michael Jackson was my gateway into rock music.
Right.
Actually.
That makes sense, yeah, because he did do some crossover stuff on the Bad album and that, didn't he, when he was trying to be a bit
Bad,
more attitude.
Dangerous, like working with Slash.
Yeah.
Jennifer Batten, his like touring guitarist, he loved working with, well, Eddie Van Halen, like the best guitarist in the world. So I think that was a bit of a gateway for me. But yeah, the pop scene, wow, in the 80s was amazing.
Clever guy. So there's my dad's influences, and then just the stuff of the time. Like I was saying, I've got an older sister as well. She's a couple of years older than me.
Right.
So she was into Madonna at the time. I think every girl was, and I think every boy was into Michael Jackson, which I was. But when you're really young, that's kind of just the music that's around you. Really young, I'm talking like single digits kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what I found through teaching as well is that we generally don't, maybe you're different, and I've experienced people who are different as well. The kind of general age that people start to get into music by themselves and take an interest is usually around that 13, 14, 15 mark. That's what I found.
Yeah.
And for me, when I started playing the guitar, what happened was, well, I got my first guitar. I could show you that.
Have you still got your first guitar?
Still got my first guitar. You're going to love this.
Oh, no way.
So I got this when I was 7 years old.
Oh.
And it was this colour. It was bright pink all over. But I was a 7-year-old boy, and obviously I didn't want a pink guitar, so I scraped it all off, which I hugely regret now. And now I'm all about pink guitars. Look at that.
Oh my God.
It's got this great pickup thing that jumps out. But anyway.
Was it actually a working guitar? Did it actually work?
Yeah, working guitar, and it had a wee amp in that. So it was one of these things that actually apparently ruined Christmas one morning. I'd got it for my Christmas, and you know what it's like, excited kids. I got up stupid early, just couldn't wait, ran downstairs and picked it up and just burst through to my parents' bedroom. It was like, look what I got. And they're like, you went down without us kind of thing. But anyway, I got in trouble for that.
It's got to be done. You've got, like, every kid has got to do that at least once in their life. You know, that's like a rite of passage, isn't it? You just got to do it. You know, get or find all your presents like the night before or something. Or
sneaky. You learn. That's how you learn. That's how you shape your character and whatnot. So
I have another look at that, because that is unbelievable. Was it like a thing that they bought, or did they get it made? Or
no. I'm pretty sure they got this second hand, and it came with a second hand amp as well. I think my dad bought it off of one of his friends. So Artist is a brand. They're a brand these days, but it's not the same brand. It's not the same artist. The one these days, they do kind of like budget guitars, like Harley Benton style stuff, but I think they're mainly based in Australia, although I don't think they're made there. But this Artist is different. I think these were I doubt it's Japanese, but it could be. But yeah, one single humbucker. It's got a full-size bridge. I reckon it's half-size, Explorer shape, one knob that's missing. There you go. Now I'm turning into doing a review on this guitar. What's going on? But
that is, I just think that's absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like that.
It's had a replacement machine head as well. It's got a classical one on there that broke.
That is awesome. Like as a first guitar, because I was recently looking for this kind of thing for my daughter, because she just turned 7 and she wanted a guitar. I ended up getting her the mini Squire Strat, but it's still it's beautiful. I love it. I actually love it. It's a great guitar, and it plays fantastically well. And I made a I made a silly video where I dressed up as Jem from Jem and the
Oh,
Hologram.
brilliant.
It looked like a guitar that Jem would play. But that looks even more like a Jem and the Holograms guitar. And you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Because my sister was into Barbie and Jem. And who was the other one? Cindy.
Oh, yeah, but they were a bit lame because Jem was a rock star.
That's
obviously.
right. Yeah, I think my sister had a Jem as well, yeah.
And they came all with their guitars and instruments. Like one was a drummer, one was a bass player. They're a proper band and everything. So that guitar, I just immediately, like, because it's so pink and everything, I was like, that's Jem.
That's it. Maybe it's a Jem signature model. I don't know. Could be from the time.
That's amazing. I wish they still made them because I would have bought one for my little girl.
I wish I never scraped the paint off it. I really regret that. So I got that guitar when I was 7, and I maybe like made some noises on it for about 2 weeks, and then it went in the cupboard with the karate suit and the space hopper for probably about 10 years or something. Yeah. So then what happened was when I was about 13 about 13, my sister started picking up the acoustic guitar and playing some wee tunes in that, and I was like, what's going on here? I'm the guitar player. I play the guitar in the family because I've got this pink guitar when I was 7 years old. Yeah. So I got a bit jealous and I started trying to catch up with her and keep up. And then I got a hold of this wee 3/4 string half size nylon acoustic, and I basically learned to play on that. And the time, the music was it was all Oasis. All my friends and that were into Oasis, so I got into Oasis and started learning their stuff.
Yes, no, absolutely. That's it's funny because obviously they were popular at the time and everything, but I never got into that. That just kind of wasn't because I'd gone the sort of rock route. So it was all the kind of what we call hair metal, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, and all that kind of stuff. So when Oasis came out, I could obviously hear like the Beatles influence because I've always been a big fan of the Beatles. That's I'll always love their music and everything. But to me, when I heard Oasis, I was like, well, they're just ripping off the Beatles. I'm not, and they're not as good. So I'm not really interested in that.
Well,
but,
definitely not as good.
No, that's like I can hear what they're doing, and that they're just sort of like copying a lot of my favorite like Beatles songs. But the singer's not very good, and the guitar isn't that interesting. But so I always find it interesting when I meet guitarists who liked Oasis or who say that Noel is a guitarist that they like. So I sort of wonder like what is it that appeals about that?
Well, I think what it was is see, looking back on it, I'm not sure how much it actually was into Oasis. Like I just wanted to play the guitar.
Okay.
That was the band that was around, and I remember all my friends were all into Oasis and things like that, and I was as well. I mean, I got the album and I listened to it. I would know some of the lyrics and things like that. But also, just sort of talking about the rock thing, when I was younger, a big influence on me as well was movies like Wayne's World and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, I love Bill and Ted. I loved Keanu. Yeah.
That's it. And my older sister, she was into Extreme like before anyone. Because she used to buy like the pop or metal magazines or whatever. Maybe not metal, but whatever the magazines were at the time. And she fell in love with Nuno Betancourt.
Right.
What a hunk.
Obviously.
Obviously. So she had like before Extreme like got super big with their More Than Words thing, the album before that, Extreme, with Play With Me and things like that, she had that on tape, and that I used to listen to that when we were young as well, and I remember just getting super excited about it, but I wasn't really wanting to play the guitar or anything at the time. I was a bit too young for that.
But it's a good album. Like they're a good band, I like Extreme, I like Nuno. I think he's he's been kind of massively influential for like 30 odd years, hasn't he? So he's like the number one. Yes. So that was your way into kind of Extreme and Nuno and stuff, and
so that was kind of lingering in the back. That stuff was kind of lingering in the back, but then I got into Oasis because that was what was popular at the time, and I got what was it, What's the Story, Morning Glory tab and chord book, And I got that, and I remember like just being super excited about learning guitar when I was young, and I would run home from school at dinner times because I lived quite close, and after school just to play the guitar, you know, just to learn. I wish I was like that now. It's not like that anymore, unfortunately. But so
But
progressed quite quickly.
Did you have any lessons or anything, or did you just like get chord books and teach yourself?
Not at that time, but I had my father as well, so he would sort of throw me some stuff. And my stepdad also plays guitar, so he would, if I ever got stuck on anything, they were there. I never had any formal lessons from any of them, but they were always very supportive in anything that I needed to know. So yeah, I battered through that Oasis book like super quick. Like I'd learnt every song in like about, I don't know, a month or something like that.
Yeah.
And then after that, that was me kind of done with Oasis. I was like, right, that's fine. What now? And then I got my dad rented a CD from the local library because he'd noticed that I was getting into guitar. He's like, right, okay, he's maybe fallen out with, or he's not in Oasis anymore. What, we're going to give him something challenging. So he got me Joe Satriani, The Extremist.
Hang on. You went from Oasis to Joe Satriani. That's like
not playing it, but in terms of listening to it. So that's the kind of stuff I was listening to and learning to play. And then the Joe Satriani, The Extremist album, and then I just got stupid into that. And a good friend of mine who I'd lost touch with over the years got back in touch with. He'd been learning the guitar. He's phenomenal, great player. Steve Murphy. He's on YouTube as well. Yeah, he was like super shredding. Like I was playing Oasis bar chords. He's the same age as me, and he was shredding like crazy. He was into Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Extreme, Steve Vai, all the people. So I just started hanging out with him a lot and trying to get some inspiration from him. And I never did learn to shred, but kind of I would learn the melodies. That's about it.
I never did either, but I, similarly, because these guys were huge at the time. Like, I know it seems pretty obscure, and like a lot of people who are not guitarists or musicians like don't necessarily know who Joe Satriani is, who Yngwie Malmsteen is, but when you were a kid at that time and you did play guitar, you couldn't not know about them. And especially if you, like, I had a subscription to Total Guitar magazine, which was basically like, that was my entire pocket money, like every month, like £15 a month. That just went on a Total Guitar magazine when I was, like you say, sort of 14, 15, and every month they were just in there, these guys, Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and my science teacher at school, who was an amazing teacher, absolutely loved him, and he helped me to make my own guitar actually when I was at school. He was awesome, and he was massively into Joe Satriani. So like at lunchtimes when when he was helping me with making my guitar, when we're in the workshop and stuff, he'd like put on a Joe Satriani Surfing with the Alien or something. We'd listen to it. So I was really into it as well. But I remember trying, like in Total Guitar magazine, they tabbed out some stuff like Always With Me, Always With You, and those, few of his songs, and had the CD at home, and sort of I would have a go at trying to play along to it. I was just like, no. And I just haven't got, like, I can't reach, it's not happening.
Yeah, he's got crazy technique and fingers. That was the same. I kind of would learn, like always with me, always with you, like you say, I would learn the melodies and things like that. And then as soon as it got a bit too difficult, it's like, I'm out.
Yeah, it's a bit disheartening, isn't it? But you find that in trying to do it, it actually does help you make a little bit of progress in your own playing. You find you do then get a little bit better at playing the easier stuff that you could, that you were trying to play as well.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I would credit Joe Satriani massively, not just for the guitar skills, but listen to his music, his kind of musical ear. So a lot of his songs that he would write back in the day, he was quite modal. So he would sort of take you into these little universes of sound that you wouldn't hear normally on the radio or anything like that. You wouldn't hear like a really heavy, frigid, dominant sort of riffed song or anything like that, or yeah, and I didn't even know what they were called at the time, or something that's like Dorian or Lydian, and these things just sound sort of really cool, and it opens up your ear to this stuff early on. So when you hear it later and you find out what it's called, I found it easier to identify things like that. So hugely appreciate Satriani for just opening up my ear to different things that I probably wouldn't have found if I was just listening to, like, I don't know, Metallica or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with Metallica, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
He was a bit more of eclectic taste that Satriani had going on.
Absolutely, I know what you mean. Although obviously Joe Satriani did teach Kirk Hammett to play.
Right. That's right, yeah.
It's but yeah, that it's very different. The style of music is very different, and it's a much more kind of simplified style. Not, you know, I still can't play it even, but but I'm more inclined to have a bash at learning riffs and solos of Metallica's than Joe Satriani, just because there's a degree of achievability there.
Yeah, it's more accessible, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, and all those guys, kind of in the 90s when we were getting Total Guitar magazine and trying to play stuff. But I think you obviously kind of persevered with it, kind of to a greater extent probably than I did.
Well, I was probably just a mental thing. I just seem to get obsessed about things. So that was one of the things, was getting obsessed about. Actually, that's not really left me. But anyway.
Did you join, like, you know, when you were at school and college or whatever, did you kind of start up any bands and do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we were at a band in school. It was sort of helped by our music teacher, who was also very supportive. And she kind of put us together. So I would have been in 4th year, I think. So maybe like 14, 15. Mm-hmm. And no, 3rd year, sorry. And I got put in a band with guys who are a bit older and some other people. So there's a guy who's playing guitar. He's playing a lot of Oasis things and Travis and the Beatles and all that kind of indie stuff. And at this point, I'm into my Satriani now, so I'm the lead guitarist. And our music teacher got us together, and we used to get to rehearse at lunchtimes and after school. And she even got us a gig with a local band.
It sounds a bit like School of Rock or something.
Yeah, totally, it was. So we got a gig and played my first gig, probably about 14, 15 years old or something like that, not long after playing. And that's been pretty much a constant as well. And then after school,
in bands and stuff.
Yeah. I've been in bands like most of my life. I did take maybe about a 5-6 year hiatus at one point in my 30s, but that's a story for another time. But
okay.
So yeah, the music thing and guitar, obsessed with it. So that was about when I got in at 14, Oasis, getting into Satriani. That took me through 5th and 6th year at school. Did music as a subject. That was basically the only subject that I did at school, just music and art. I kind of failed everything else. And then after that,
you didn't need all the rest of the stuff anyway. It's completely irrelevant.
That's it, totally. So the only path for me was then sort of pursuing music further. So I went to music college, just the city over from mine in Perth. I went there for 3 years and did a degree in music. It's the only thing I was only going to ever get a degree in was music, because I don't know anything about anything else. So that was a great course as well. It wasn't like classical music or anything like that. It was music performance, and we got modules on like music business, and we got put in bands, and we got teaching placements and stuff like that. So it was really sort of a useful course. So
that like a more vocational kind of course than the theoretical kind of academic kind of base.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of both, and there was also so we did have to do music theory as well. And we had one-on-one lessons on our instruments, and we got session skills with getting to the studios and stuff. It was a really great course. That's
amazing, because that would seem to open up a lot of different career pathways in music, from, like, as you say, session work, which can be, you can actually make a living at doing that, to teaching, which is another thing you can make a living at. Like, these are all, opening up all these kind of different options for you, which is kind of way better than my history and politics degree.
Wow.
which opened up zero options in the workplace. But anyway.
That's it. I think sometimes it doesn't matter what the degree's in. for a lot of jobs. Like sorry, I'm getting into something else now, but just having a degree in anything on your CV just kind of shows that you can apply yourself for like 3 or 4 years at something.
Totally, and I am completely just being really flippant about it, and obviously it's any kind of qualification is worthwhile in and of itself, and to be encouraged and everything. But it's really, I think for some people, when there is only that one thing that you want to do, it's really useful to have something that is actually designed to help you to do that for your career, and not just go, oh yeah, well this is really interesting and you'll enjoy it and you'll have 3 years of like really loving learning about it, and then off you go out into the world with equipped with what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky that I did graduate and managed to pass, but even if I didn't, the best thing about college was meeting all the people that I met, like people from mainly from Scotland, but there were some people from other places in the UK, because the course was quite popular for the reasons that I mentioned, and it had a decent reputation. And I got sort of into so much more music than I wasn't hearing, because I was hanging out with these different people who were into different stuff. I was hanging out with drummers, bass players, singers. Just such a great course. So at that time, it kind of went almost full circle. So what was it? Let's think. So we've got early Beach Boys, Beatles, Michael Jackson, Extreme, and then Oasis, and then Satriani, and all these kind of guys. And then I go to college, and then it's all like Jamiroquai, Steely Dan, like all these kind of funk and kind of... back into Michael Jackson again, back into Stevie Wonder again. And I kind of went full circle and just got back into all the stuff that was kind of from my early days. And then I basically stopped listening to guitar music altogether. And I was just listening to like soul and funk, and that just became my thing for the longest time until now, really.
Although you say that, but there's an awful lot of amazing guitarists in that genre. Prince.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, totally.
And Hall and Oates and kind of, there's so many different kind of interesting and unique guitarists that have come from that kind of place into like funk metal, I suppose, because like that's what sort of Extreme were doing in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I remember Jamiroquai being huge when we were at school. I wasn't keen on them. Like I have said in some of my other videos that I've never been into sort of jazz, and that like sort of updated version of jazz, almost jazz rock, was sort of not my thing. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't really get my head around it. But it musically and compositionally and everything, I can see that it's pretty interesting stuff. But I just couldn't connect with it at the time as a kid. And sort of primarily, I think, because by that time, I was into all the sort of 90s Seattle bands. So, Nirvana and Soundgarden and stuff, which, the ethos of that was more or less about kind of keeping it fairly simple and straightforward, almost like, a new updated version of like punk rock. So and my playing and everything, that was the stuff that I was learning on the guitar. And my poor mum, when I got my first electric guitar, having to listen to me repeatedly sort of loudly thrashing out Smells Like Teen Spirit at all hours was I can't imagine that was very much fun.
Well, at least you didn't play the violin. That's got to be the hardest hardest instrument to listen to someone learning and practicing. It's like,
I don't know, because when I was really little at school, the first instrument that I learned to play was recorder, which is probably the most horrible instrument to listen to, maybe apart from bagpipes.
I'm not a fan of the pipes either. Sorry to my fellow countrymen, for anyone watching.
No, wind instruments in general, I don't like like woodwind. I'm not a fan of any of them really. And I think that was part of my aversion to jazz as well. It was all kind of, horns and saxes and all that kind of stuff, which I can appreciate more now. But yeah, it's just funny. As a kid, I was really into playing the recorder. I got really actually quite good at it.
Oh, brilliant.
Even as a teenager, at the same time, when I was learning to play guitar at school, in assemblies and stuff, I was still playing like recorder.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, because it's very rare you hear of that. Most people, they'll get like, well, that's what it's like in Scotland anyway. A recorder's the kind of thing you'll get in primary school for a few weeks and then that's it, done. No one continues with a recorder. But look at you, Jojo, kept it going into your teens. That's a special kind of person. Well done.
Oh dear, I just, it was just something that when you get sort of reasonably good at something, or to a reasonable level, it sort of like creates its own motivation to keep going with it, I suppose. Whereas if you try something and you find that you absolutely suck at it, then you've got no, there is no motivation to keep going with it. So like I've tried to learn piano a couple of times before, and I've had a couple of lessons. I don't know. Something doesn't connect with me. Something just doesn't click. Even though I'm used to obviously playing guitar and doing two different things with my hands, there's just something about the way, and it's quite similar to guitar in a lot of ways as well. But I don't know, just it doesn't work for me, and I've given up. The two times that I started trying to learn, I just sort of gave up fairly quickly because I wasn't making any kind of progress anytime very quickly. So I think that is a key thing when you're learning, isn't it? It's like how rapidly you're able to kind of grasp new things, do new techniques, just how quickly you're able to sort of like pick those up and assimilate them, I think is a really important aspect of keeping you motivated and into it.
Definitely, yeah. You want to get those rewards. Everybody wants to get better quick, don't they? Results. That's it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
results. It's the results thing, isn't it? we're all kind of driven by those like reward circuits and those dopamine hits and everything.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. So, first thing is maybe you could see the appeal with the recorder. It's small, lightweight, portable. You don't need to tune it, so that's a good sort of. When you look at, you don't need pedals and batteries.
You don't need pedals anyway. Like,
that's right. Yeah, I agree. I don't use pedals. Well, kind of do. Not really. And then there's
actually you are one of the only guitarists who I've heard who is not particularly into pedals. But we'll come on to that in a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So the piano, I'm the same. There's a couple of things with the piano. So one of the things could be comparing to guitar is that I think I don't play the piano, so I couldn't really say it, but I think the guitar is a bit more of a visceral experience because you're feeling the strings under your fingers, and they're kind of, each string and note moves a different way, and you get a different response. And you can actually, if you're wearing the guitar or holding it or sitting with it, you can feel the sort of vibrations of the body through yourself as well. It feels like more of an experience compared to the piano, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I've not played enough piano to say if that's the case. And then there's because of who plays the guitar and what the guitar's role is in modern music, like you say, you could be playing your favourite riffs or something that you identify or know on day one with guitar, whereas the piano and playing something that you recognise and maybe music that you like isn't going to be a day one kind of thing. It's going to be a melody like Mary Had a Little Lamb or something like that. That's the kind of thing you'll be learning on day one, whereas on guitar you could be right into Smoke on the Water or whatever the riff happens to be. So that could be part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. You can kind of get the riff to come as you are. You can get that down, and you can be, you crank up your amp and everything, and you can be rocking that. Like,
yeah, that was probably one of the first things I learned as well, was Come As You Are. I wasn't even into Nirvana, but it was one of these things that I learned sort of week one sort of thing.
and it's an amazing song actually, and actually coming back to the pedals thing, obviously they didn't use a lot of pedals. Kurt only really used his like DS1 Boss distortion pedal,
Chorus.
and I think a lot of chorus. I'm not sure exactly what chorus one, but there's and obviously a lot of reverb and everything. But it's mostly distortion and chorus. It's quite simple to recreate. So yeah, you don't need a lot of gear or anything to kind of pull that off as well. But if you're 13 and you've just got an amp that has like a distortion setting or whatever, you can still just play it through that and turn everything up, and you're there really. And so there is that thing about you can, with a guitar, it does seem more immediate in terms of like rocking than like you're going to spend quite a long time before you can sound like anything on the piano, unfortunately. So yeah, I suppose I've never had the sort of patience and commitment in order to do that.
Same here.
It's great just kind of like going back to a time when I think music was like, I think really the 80s and 90s for someone who's into sort of guitar driven music, that was an absolutely amazing time, I think, to grow up. And when these bands all, you were around and you were the right age when all these amazing bands came out and it was new and fresh and everything. And I one of the things that I struggle with, like, I just can't believe, is like how that's all gone now. And when you're a kid, you just think that's always going to be there, like it's always going to be like that. So you think, oh yeah, in 20 years time, 30 years time, there's always going to be new amazing like rock bands coming out. But it didn't. It all ground to a halt and everything changed. And that's been a really sort of difficult thing as someone who's massively into music, and guitar based music as well. It's like, is there anything that like you're into nowadays, like say from the last sort of 10, 15 years, or what's your feeling about how the music has shifted and changed?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, isn't it? Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm trying to think of, like, in terms of rock bands, who was the sort of last big rock band that made like a big impact? And the only thing that comes to mind is, there's probably others, but I'm thinking like the Arctic Monkeys. I know they're not like proper rock. I mean, they're kind of indie rock for starting, and then they kind of got a bit more, I don't know, pop or that. I wouldn't say Coldplay. They were a band, and then they turned into like an EDM outfit or something. But yeah, maybe like Arctic Monkeys are the last ones to get big. I don't know how big they are globally. Maybe it's just a UK thing.
No, I think they are pretty big, actually. Yeah. I think when, so like the sort of generation after ours, when they were at school, like when we were at school and it was Oasis and Nirvana and all that kind of stuff, I think for the next generation it was like the Arctic Monkeys were a massive thing.
Yeah. So who would you say, maybe, has anybody came after them that sort of reached that kind of height in the rock? I mean, you could go into all these sort of sub niches of sort of more niche metal and things like that, but I'm thinking of someone who's more like a sort of, you would see them in the mainstream, like Foo Fighters or something like that.
Well, it probably is the Foo Fighters then, I would say, as the biggest one. But like I again wasn't ever that into them because I just never found the music particularly interesting. Yeah. It was, yes, it's guitar based and everything, but it's hardly as if it's got any sort of amazing solos and stuff. Yeah. Some quite fairly decent riffs, I suppose, and he's a passable vocalist.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm not like the biggest Foo Fighters fan in the world or anything like that, but I do I appreciate Dave Grohl's guitar playing. Like, because he's a drummer, he's got that really rhythmic kind of playing. Like the riffs are really drummerish in a good way. And
Yes,
I,
yes, that's true.
I seen him at a tea in the park one year, and they did like I think they were supposed to do an hour set, but they did longer. And just his voice, that he's got that rock voice, the growl, Dave Growl, you know.
Yeah.
And he kept that screaming going for like over an hour. And he was probably playing the night before, and he's playing the next night as well. It's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. You can do that. And I think he's the kind of guy who's drinking whiskey and stuff like that. And so his throat must be knackered. I don't know how much longevity he's going to have, but good on him.
Well, I don't think he does it for the money. Let's say, I think he doesn't ever need to do anything. Really, he didn't need to ever do anything after Nirvana. Like,
good point.
So
Yeah.
it's clearly a thing that he does because he enjoys it. But for me, that wasn't it just wasn't a band that I was that into. I think at that time, sort of like Pearl Jam was still going, so I was still listening to the bands that I liked from that period. Alice in Chains, they were still going for a while, like after like post Nirvana and stuff. So, but in the last sort of 10 or even 20 years, the last band that I've got into was The Darkness.
Oh yeah.
And, they're obviously now more of like a cult band because they have got a following. They've got an audience and everything, and they tend to be mostly people like me who were into them back in the day and have sort of stuck it out and stuck around and everything. But even when they came out, like 2003, 2004, they were, as you'll probably remember, they were kind of seen as like a novelty act.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Because they were playing sort of very trad rock, very much like...
And very well.
Rock. Yeah. With their own spin on it and their own take on it, but it was very much sort of like Queen, AC/DC, that sort of 1970s sort of rock. That was even like, before hair metal, it was that kind of thing. So it was quite retro, and because of that, it was not taken seriously.
I think some of that was because of the humour in it,
and that
they were the first to kind of take the piss out themselves. Yeah, and it seemed to be like the older generation who were into the AC/DC's, Queens and stuff like that. When they heard The Darkness, it was just so refreshing. They were all on board. Have you heard this band? So good. There's something for us in the mainstream. It's so good, kind of thing. Whereas I think I don't know, the younger generation or that just kind of it's like this is kind of what would it be, out of fashion kind of thing maybe, or didn't get the joke. I'm not sure.
No, they didn't get the joke because at the time the really kind of popular rock, I'll say rock, I'm not really convinced that it is, but like the popular bands that were sort of guitar based were all the like emo and pop punk bands. So you had like My Chemical Romance, Blink 182, Good Charlotte, all those sort of like American sort of pop punk and emo bands, and kids were all going around with like, do you remember that hairstyle where it was like side swept fringe that was like done with straighteners, and it was like dyed black, and it was kind of like had these spiky bits at the front. Awesome. And that was what everyone that was what, if kids were into music at that time, that was what they looked like. Because I remember going out, to nightclubs and things, and that was what all the kids who were like, a few years younger than me all sort of looked like. Which was funny because like I felt old at the time. I was like 23, 24. But yeah, I seem to have nothing. There was like nothing in common with like the sort of 18, 19-year-olds. So like even in that sort of space of time in the early 2000s seemed to be where things really, really changed in music.
Yeah.
And rock really had sort of gone, I think, by then.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's like it's hard for bands to do like what Nirvana did. Like to come in with just a completely fresh sound and just change everything that's totally different to everything else that's going on. Or bring something back, like the punky thing, you know, like, I don't know who would have been the first bands to go mainstream with that. Would that have been like Green Day or something? Would they
Green
be
Day, I
one
was
of the
thinking.
first ones? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
yeah.
the Darkness, having a go at that kind of bringing back the, I don't know, what would you call it? It's not glam rock, but the look was glam rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, bringing back that classic rock thing in a time when, I mean, they did pretty well considering that it wasn't the right time. And then
right, they had 1 year. They had 2004 where they won like every Brit Award. They headlined Reading and Leeds, and you know they had this like immediate overnight success. They were like the biggest thing. They were in all. Justin was in every like tabloid newspaper. It was all about Justin Hawkins. I've seen him at a service station on the M1. You know. It was all this kind of stuff.
I mean, even the band I was playing at the time, we were doing a couple of Darkness covers.
Oh, did you? What did you do?
Well, we did I Believe in a Thing Called Love, and we did the Christmas one near the Christmas time, and I think we did Growing on Me as well.
Oh, that's my favourite.
Well, one of those, is it Growing on Me? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's my favourite. Still my favourite Darkness song.
Just taking me at the time, we also did that song by, I don't know if you'll remember this one hit wonder, the Rasmus.
Oh, the Rasmus. They were the Finnish band, weren't they?
Yeah, I've Been Waiting or something like that.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, just took me back there.
Yeah, they were sort of like a sort of metal, weren't they?
Kind of like metal, emo or something like that. I'm not sure what they were.
Oh, yeah. They definitely had that spiky black, like flattened fringed hair thing.
Yeah. So do you remember the other band? So talking to these bands that maybe had a go at sort of freshening things up and successfully or unsuccessfully. So I think you've got Nirvana, Green Day, who like absolutely smashed it, and then you've got the Darkness, who they did all right. And then do you remember the Towers of London?
Yes.
They tried to do the proper like Sid Vicious punk thing, and I don't know what they got, maybe like 6 months or something. And that just didn't work.
No, it didn't. And they I don't know whether it was real or put on, but they had like a real attitude about them, didn't they? They were trying to be, like you say, it was kind of like trying to emulate that sort of real punk attitude. But in reality, I don't know were they just like a bunch of posh boys that were just...
I think I might have read that, yeah. Possibly.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. You can always tell when it's, when it's not authentic, I think. Yeah. And I think, that sort of like when it doesn't ring true and you don't have that sort of authenticity, and then it becomes a bit of a joke and people think it's a bit lame. And also like the Libertines had already kind of done all that really anyway. Yeah. Like not musically, but just they'd already done the whole kind of drinking, drugs,
the rock and roll attitudes kind of
thing. Yeah. And so I think by that point it was a bit it had gone back out of fashion again. I think. Yeah. So they were maybe a bit late with it as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how successful or unsuccessful you could say they were in terms of. I mean, I couldn't name you any of their songs or anything like that. This is the Towers of London again. But I think they did a good job at the PR side of things. I think without sort of getting themselves in the papers or probably early social media at the time, without that, they would have just been another band that no one cared about, probably. But I think they one of them ended up on Big Brother or something like that.
Yes.
They kind of went heavy into the reality side of things. So, yeah, that way they did well. But speaking of the music and what you were talking about earlier, Rick Beato spoke about this recently, is about how maybe one of the reasons we don't see, like I was saying, maybe the Arctic Monkeys, the last band I can remember being the mainstream rock. There's probably others. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any. But yeah, like how there isn't really a mainstream anymore. I mean, there is in terms of there's like this kind of 1% thing, this Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, and then a lot of artists that kind of come and go. But because of the way we listen to music, we don't really have the same, like we used to have chart shows, MTV. I mean, maybe you do have MTV, but it's just not, people don't watch TV generally that much anymore. It's not relevant, a lot of the stuff. So what we have now is the way that we consume music is we all have feeds, individual feeds. So like you were asking kind of things I'm listening to. I mean, I won't get any recommendations of anything current or new. Like I'm listening to kind of niche stuff. I'm not saying like I'm listening to niche music that no one else knows about. It's not like that. It's just that I'm listening to what I'm listening to, and I'm getting recommended things based on that. And I'm still finding great music by small artists and bands, and I'm quite happy with what I'm listening to.
So what type of stuff is that then? What are you kind of currently into?
I've actually probably not listened to music. Like I used to have my Spotify on it like every day since I started YouTube. So it's almost 2 years I've not really like listened to music for leisure, which is embarrassing. I'm listening to music when I'm learning songs for the band, but that's not stuff I would listen to. Right. So yeah, I used to listen to music when I was walking to work or when I was running. Occasionally go running, and I kind of stopped that because when I was walking and running, this is like my thinking time now that I get ideas for YouTube videos and content and things like that. So that's kind of took precedence. But yeah, I feel pretty guilty about that. I need to get back into listening to music. But I don't know what I've been listening to recently. Try to think of a band. I can't think of anything. I'll come to me and I'll get back to you if there's anything I can think of.
Well, I mean, I was the same for a long time. I think I'd sort of really just sort of given up on music for quite a long time. And I didn't play guitar for quite a long time as well, for one reason and another. You know, lots of different things happened in my life, and kind of just meant that I fell out of love really with all of it, you know, and just kind of gave up. But over the last like 2 years or so, probably since I started watching more and more YouTube, to be honest, because that wasn't something that I've done very much of before that time. But yeah, over the last couple of years, as I've discovered like more and more stuff on YouTube, I find that I've just been drawn to more and more sort of like music channels, guitar channels, and Justin Hawkins obviously started up his channel, Justin Hawkins Rides Again, where he talks about music and reviews bands and music, and some of it's not particularly new, but a lot of it is stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise heard and I wouldn't have otherwise come across. And that was how I discovered Richie Kotzen, which is mad because, like, I don't know how I didn't know of him before. It's one of those really weird things. Like, I loved Poison in the 80s and 90s. I had Poison albums. I just, I just didn't realise that he'd been in that band, and I didn't know who he was, and that he was this incredible guitarist, songwriter, singer, just one of those guys who was just an all-round, like, talented, incredible musician. So it was only kind of like last year when he was on with Justin on a podcast, and he was talking about some of the things that he'd done. And I then realised that, oh my God, this is the guy who's written like literally one of my favourite songs ever of all time, which is a Poison song called Until You Suffer Some Fire and Ice. Beautiful song.
I don't know it, I'm sorry.
It's so beautiful.
I'll check it out though.
I absolutely love it, but he'd written it, and I've since seen him do like his own kind of versions of it, which, that's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, then I started getting really into his stuff. So he's done hundreds of albums, so it's sort of taking me quite a long time to work through all of those. And he put another one out this year, and he's, you know, in the Winery Dogs as well, so there's their albums. And he's putting out a new album with Adrian Smith. He's in a kind of duo with Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden. So Smith Kotzen is another one of his kind of projects. So like he's kept me busy, you know, for most of the last year, to be honest. And then Jerry Cantrell, you know, who's continued, like he's still in Alice in Chains, but doing stuff as a solo artist, and he's put out a new album recently. So like I've been finding music that's new to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And some new music that they're because they're still producing stuff and still putting stuff out that I find I really connect with, and it has got me right back into it. You know, it's really kind of reignited that passion for music, and that's kind of one of the things that inspired me to create my channel, really, so I can talk to people about it.
There you go. So thank you, YouTube. You've went full circle there with it, getting you back into it, and then now you are one of the creators. Wow.
Well, trying to be anyway. But really, this is just a way for me to, you know, to do what I love and talk about it, and, you know, play some guitar, because I wasn't doing anything, and I've got 7 guitars here that were just like not being touched, which is a real shame. And I've been just really enjoying it, and I just feel like there's a really good community out there, especially guitar YouTube, that I feel like, you know, I really like being part of, I really like being connected to, and that's really inspiring me to sort of keep going really with my channel. Because I was gonna jump on that whole topic about pedals and stuff, because I think we might be the only 2 people in the whole of like guitar YouTube that like don't really care about pedals. It's just something that it's never interested me, and maybe that's because I've always used like digital modeling amps, so like I just don't need them, and it's just something that I'm bothered about at all.
Pretty much the same here, yeah.
But I guess it's different if you're a tube amp person and you need some way of creating effects, then I kind of think, well, just don't have a tube amp. But
That's it.
But I know I'm like very much kind of in the minority of you know, of guitarists, because it seems to be one of those things where they're relatively inexpensive. Well, no, actually, no, some of them are horrendously expensive, but a lot of them are relatively inexpensive. And, you know, I think it's one of those things that's quite, you know, all right to buy. Like, people aren't necessarily able to kind of afford new guitars all the time. If you want a different sound and you want to change up, you know, what you're doing, it can be quite tempting, I think, to go, oh, I could, you know, get 30 quid. I could get that pedal.
Totally.
And I can see how that might be something that's appealing, but when you've got access to something like a Katana, where there's this, you know, Tone Studio software in which you can recreate any amp or effect or, you know, anything, then okay, you have to spend a while kind of messing around with it. It's not as convenient, I suppose, as just like plugging in a pedal, but then that's what patches are for. So I can just download a patch, and that's actually just as easy.
Much the same. In terms of having a guitar YouTube channel, not being into pedals is a bad move. Like, I could easily get a 20 quid sort of Amazon pedal every month and get a video out of that, you know, and then sell it on or give it away or something like that. But I've just no interest in it. Just, I don't know what it is. It's kind of like what you're saying with the presets. I don't like how whatever I put into the pedal, if I find the tone that I like, I can't save it.
No,
I want to say, like, whatever that is, I have to remember it, and if I want to recall it again, I have to go back and get those 1, 2, or 3, or 4 knobs into that position again, or put tape on it. I think that's just presets, please. That's
Exactly. When you're a professional musician, you play in a band and you want to get in there, you want to get set up like as quickly as possible. I don't imagine that you have a lot of time to fiddle around with things. You just want to kind of get in and get the job done. So that's not really that conducive to operating in that sort of way.
yeah, like take a phaser for example, or not that I use a phaser loads, but if I did have a phaser and it's on a setting for actually Bill Withers' Lovely Day, we use a phaser on that, so that's at a certain speed, rate, and all that kind of stuff. So if it was a physical pedal that I had on my board, it would be all the knobs where they have to be. And then if I have another song later on in the set where I need to use a phaser, which I probably don't, but if I did and it needed a different setting on it, before that song starts, I need to get on my knees, change it to whatever it's going to, and then I need to remember that wherever Lovely Day is back in the set for the next gig, it needs to be back on that setting again.
Yeah.
Whereas with my presets, I can have a phaser set to anything and recall it for per song or per patch or whatever kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, unless you are in a band that is, at a level where you've got kind of roadies and techs and things that sort of manage all this stuff for you while you're playing live, then, it's not a good look, is it, to be like at someone's wedding crawling around on the floor, like
Yeah. Well, that's it. And I like to say, let's say I've got this, let's say it's a Boss phaser. I don't have a Boss phaser pedal. Let's say I had a Boss phaser pedal. I've got this hunk of metal that's, I don't know how much it weighs, and I'm taking this to me with gigs, and I've got like about 10 of these, but this particular one pedal, and I'm maybe only using it for 2 songs or 1. It's just, I'd rather have a unit that just, I don't know, there you go. But I'm not like a massive tone snob or tone chaser or anything like that. I'm a kind of set it and forget it kind of guy. Yeah, that's it.
And that's kind of the same for me, really. And most of the time I'm playing covers of songs by bands that I like, and so as long as I've got like either a patch that sounds kind of close enough, or I looked up for that Slash Tone challenge. I actually didn't download a patch, but I watched a couple of videos on YouTube like how to dial it in, which I could do just on the amp without even without needing any additional, because my amp actually has like an auto wah as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't even kind of like need to use a wah pedal. There's kind of one built in as well. So although I do have a wah pedal now, which Andy sent me to, very, very kindly, to have a play around with and have a mess around with. But it's certainly not something that comes naturally to me to use. Yeah. And I've got, basically enough to think about with like what I'm actually playing, than adding in another kind of complication of like what I'm doing with my foot down there.
What does come in naturally with a wah pedal that you have to be very careful of is that you don't do your do the mouthing noises as it was.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's it. That's it. You see so many guitar players do that, and I've done it myself. I always think I'm not doing it, and then I'll maybe see a video it's like, oh, you absolute mess. You can't help yourself. You're like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, that is one. That is that's something that I probably do that even if I'm not using the pedal, because if I'm playing something that
imaginary wah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steve. I've got to let you get on, because otherwise we literally would be here all day, just chatting stuff about guitars and music. But that's the brilliant thing, isn't it, about YouTube, is that this is why we do it, because we love it. So
told you. That's it. I told you I can't help myself. I'll just talk all the time about guitars. But yeah.
Well, that's
thanks
awesome.
for having me on. It was great to be on your channel and get to meet you, and because I've been watching your videos as well, so getting to have a chat, this is it, like you say, the community aspect of it, this is how it works. Great. Yeah, thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve, for your time, and see you on your next live stream.
Great stuff. See you there.
All right. Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.